Last week, the AU sent a delegation to Burundi headed by our President Jacob Zuma. The delegation included leaders from Ethiopia, Gabon, Mauritania and Senegal. Before that, a few days ago, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon was in Burundi as part of the efforts to bring peace and stability to the country. Well, joining us in studio now is Stephen Gruzd. He is the program head for African Peer Review Mechanism and Governance at the South African Institute of International Affairs. Good to have you.
Hi, Leanne. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to studio. It's an absolute pleasure. All right, let's get a bit of an update on the situation in Burundi. How's it looking?
So Burundi's been unstable for quite a while. In April last year, the president said that he wants to run for a third term, which was unconstitutional. And since then, violence was really unleashed. As many as 400 people have died. About 250,000 have fled to neighboring countries. There have been extrajudicial killings. There's been bombs thrown into markets. It's a persecution of opposition leaders. It's been very, very unstable, which is why there is this crisis. And so, despite it being unconstitutional, he ran in the elections in July. It was one of the only elections that the AU has never sent observers to, because they said it wasn't going to be free and fair even before. Yeah. And so there's a lot of political instability in the country.
All right, so it's not a good situation at all. I mean, we've got the UN Chief Ban Ki-moon and our President Zuma saying the starting point towards a solution would be an inclusive dialogue. Yeah. I mean, dialogue still at this point?
Well, it's always better to be talking than to be shooting. In any situation. Although I'm not sure what the outcome of these two visits are going to be. They haven't really outlined exactly what's going to happen. They've said that the AU will send in 200 people, 100 human rights monitors and 100 military observers. Now, that's a very small number even though it's a small country, 200 people, what difference is going to make? If you consider that at the beginning of the year, the AU was considering sending in 5,000 troops.
Indeed.
But because President Pierre Nkurunziza didn't agree to that, they got cold feet and pulled back. And so, yes, dialogue is important, but there's a real crisis on the ground. So I'm not sure that it's really going to make lives better for the people in the cities.
I mean, it is a big step from Nkurunziza to actually agree to the fact that they will allow these human rights and military monitors to move into the country.
Yes.
But like you say, I mean, how much can they possibly do on the ground? I mean, where can they assist? Where at the end of the day, they're not necessarily peace troops; they're not troops.
Yeah, and you've had a government that's been resistant to having outsiders in his country, even from the African Union. So there have been observers there that have been there for months, and some haven't been able to leave their hotels and do the work that they're supposed to. So a small force of 100 observers, it's really unclear the mechanics of what that means and how they would be able to deploy. Is very unclear at this moment, and it's inadequate, if you ask me, in my opinion.
I mean, 200, you're not going to touch the surface there.
No, especially if you were considering sending 5,000 in.
Indeed. I mean, you've got our president who was making a statement, and he obviously spoke about this after his trip there. He didn't say, however, when the monitors are going to be arriving, and that's another big question mark.
Correct. Look, I think he's a good mediator because he knows Burundi. President Zuma took over the mediation of the crisis of the civil war and ending the civil war in that country from late President Nelson Mandela, who in turn took it over from Julius Nyerere. And they worked collectively on that civil war, which started in about 1993 and ended in 2005. So there's a dozen years of experience. So he certainly knows the players. He was also very involved in the peace talks. The AU, when they were blocked sending in their troops, their 5,000 troops, then does what you do when you don't know what to do, which is form a committee. And so this group of heads of state was sent in to try and bring the parties together. And it's always good to do that, to try and do that. But as I say, I think the measures are quite inadequate.
Yeah, we also saw in the statement the government of Burundi say they're committed to the following. Obviously, it's the peace. These monitors going in, 200, 100 human rights, 100 military, and then also it's saying it has begun to open up space for free political activity by the people of Burundi and to ensure the freedom of the media. That's another move that they've agreed to. Do you think that this is going to be carried off adequately?
That's important. I think there was a Human Rights Watch report a couple of days ago that really did talk about these killings, bombings, disappearances of opposition leaders. And the Burundian government is making certain people that they won't talk to. They've said that they're terrorists or they're coup plotters or they are insurgents. There's also not an easy relationship with neighboring Rwanda. And some of the rebels are allegedly being trained and armed in neighboring Rwanda, and the relations between the two countries have never been easy. So yes, I think committing to those things in theory is very good. We'll have to see in practice what it actually means, how it's carried out.
Yeah, I mean, what about the issue of we've got diplomats said other African monitors sent to Bujumbura last year had been stuck in their hotel.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier.
Exactly, and not able to work.
Yeah, so we'll really have to wait and see, and whether there are moves made by the Burundian government to create the atmosphere where these observers can move and work and do what they need to do, even though their numbers are small. So yes, there've been a lot of problems, and the crisis is still ongoing.
Yeah.
I mean, even last week, I think there were bombs thrown into a market. Grenades were thrown into a market indiscriminately. People don't know who these perpetrators are. They're like masked men on motorbikes. Is it government forces? Is it militia? Is it the youth wing, which is also very active? Or is it the opposition forces? And it's very unstable. And people are worried about Burundi because it has a similar ethnic makeup to neighboring Rwanda. And we all know what happened in Rwanda in 1994. And so there's a big fear that another genocide could be perpetrated because this violence is starting to take on ethnic tinges and ethnic patterns.
Do you foresee, I mean, is there predictions? I mean, so many people are already talking about a form of genocide that is happening now in Burundi. Is it too dramatic to call it a genocide?
I think it's dramatic, but in that part of the world you can't be too careful. There have been genocides in both Rwanda and Burundi before, several times, not only in 1994, on a much smaller scale. So you have to be alert when there is that history. You can't afford to ignore it, and that's why I think the African Union is trying to take this crisis so seriously, because it just does have the potential to explode.
Yeah. Just finally, I mean, if this fails, after these talks that our President and the UN Secretary General has gone in and done, where to from here? I mean, what can we do? We've got Western leaders looking on, urging African leaders to go in and do something. They've now done something, as we've now read and seen. But if this fails, where to from here?
It's difficult to say. I think there'll be more efforts at peacemaking. I think there may be more trips by President Zuma and his team, more attempt to try and resolve the situation. I can't see the troops going in, because even though the AU has the mandate and the ability to send in troops, even if the host government doesn't agree, it's never done that in all its years of existence. And Nkurunziza has refused to have troops come in. So short of that, it's very difficult to see what's happening. I think you have to, as with all peace talks, you have to give a chance to what's been propagated. But it's probably going to be more talking, and hopefully it's taken seriously and escalated to the very highest levels. And it's not just forming a committee because you don't know what else to do.
Yeah, all right, let's leave it there. And our president almost had to stay there for a little bit longer.
He did have to stay there.
There was a broken down plane.
There was a problem with his plane, so they had to send a spare plane to come and collect him.
I believe so. The military plane had to go in and pick up our president after issues with his plane. So that's another conversation, though. We'll have that at another time. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks for coming in and chatting to us about the situation in Burundi. It's a situation that is very volatile, and now there's an agreement that they will get some troops, not troops, but monitors to go in and have a look at the situation and try and help. But will they be able to do their job? That's something we're going to have to see.